Well, it's happening again. The internet is divided, to say the least, in regards to the upcoming content for Helldivers 2. That's right, next Tuesday is going to be a new warbond, and with it comes some vitriol and some discourse. Now, there's people calling each other cry divers and glaze divers and everything in between, as well as Arrowhead themselves making some very interesting decisions during the height of all these tensions. Well, let's dive in and get into the meat of this discourse, as well as, is it warranted? So, let's dive in. So, if you weren't aware, there is a new warbond dropping out on the 28th, and it already has some people pretty upset about the contents in it, but not only that, but the decisions behind the contents within that warbond. So, in the Exo Experts warbond, there's two brand new mechs, and while that's exciting news for many people, and I personally am looking forward to having new exosuits to main on the battlefield, there are many people out there that are pretty upset that they're now putting the vehicles behind a paywall. And I can definitely understand that perspective, because if you look at the established norms of Helldivers 2, well, we've always been able to either pay with requisition to unlock the vehicles, looking at like the FRV and the previous suits, or even getting them from like a major order for like the Emancipator. Putting them now behind a paywall of sorts makes it so that if you don't have the time to grind out the super credits, that you're going to have to go and purchase it out again. And I understand a model of that for Arrowhead trying to make money, but at the same time, people are like, why are you changing things up? That's kind of scummy of you. Especially because there's been some other changes that, from an optics standpoint, don't look so good for Arrowhead. So what changes am I referring to? Well, if you take a look back at a recent update that reworked the durability system of armor and how it's expressed on enemies in this game, it made it so that our weapons were a little bit less effective against armored parts, so that they have a higher durability, and it just takes more bullets or more firepower to kind of get through it. But by doing so, people are often saying, well, it's actually impacted our exosuits because they've not had a change to their armor. So now if you were going toe-to-toe, let's say, with like a War Strider or a Vox Engine or Chargers, that it takes more time to put them down, putting you at more risk because you are kind of light armored in these exosuits. Just a couple hits can really, make the difference between life or death for your exosuit. And people are saying, well, they're kind of like paper tigers and they go down pretty quickly. And because of this, there are many of you out there that just flat out refuse to use the mechs on the battlefield. And while I do understand where you're coming from, as someone that really still does enjoy using the mechs, I haven't seen too much of a problem because we do have a ton of firepower. Yes, it will take some fun maneuvering, but it is true. If you get shot by like a harvester laser or a missile of sorts, you could just lose your gun as soon as you spawn in or get one-shotted. And that can feel pretty crappy, especially when the spawn timers to call in another mech is pretty lengthy. So if we take this into consideration and then look back again at the new warbond, the issue starts to become a little bit more clear and larger for people. And that's because also, friends, there is a new perk to the Free Spirit armor that if you're wearing this and you're inside of one of the new mechs, that it has better maneuverability and speed to it. And that is kind of a drastic change, especially when your armor rating's so low. If you could kind of outmaneuver and dodge the missiles and enemy coming your way, you're going to have a better chance of surviving. So to get a premium feature of sorts, you now have to pay for it. And then also the mech that has higher survivability, which is the Breacher exosuit that has the shield, that is something that is, again, in this paywall. So once more, you either have to pay for it outright or you have to grind for super credits. And if we go back to what people were saying before, is like, well, why are you making this change? We've never had to do this for vehicles before. People are taking an understandable issue with it. But not only that, friends, they're also saying, well, is this now kind of the norm going forward for new content? Are we going to start paywalling special features? Well, the answer to that is kind of, because people have often said to me, if you take a look back at Redacted Regiment, it introduced a new premium version to the stealth mechanic. So if you wanted to have better stealth, you needed to buy the new armors within the warbond. And now doing commando missions, people often say, if you aren't running those new armors, it makes the mission so much harder for you. So you're kind of being forced to buy new content if you want better progression. And many of you out there have said to me that, hey Ox, we have concerns because it seems like more and more of the features of the game and progression around the game is tied to buying it outright and having it behind a paywall, whereas maybe a bit before, it wasn't so much the case. So because of decisions like this, people are taking a look back at an older quote from Pilstad himself. And to quote him, it says, "You have to earn the right to monetize. I truly believe that. If people want to support the title, they have an option, but we are never forcing anyone to do so. Now, if you take a look at that quote, it kind of seems like we are taking a divergence from what's stated over here, because again, people are saying, well, that's not really true anymore, Pilestat, because we're now having to pay for premium features. So I can understand the sentiment around why people are getting so upset. So then a fear starts to creep in within the community of not wanting to over-monetize the game and go the route of EA or Ubisoft, because we already know that they have pretty egregious monetization packages. Now, I don't think that we're quite there just yet, and I don't think that necessarily we are heading down that way, but people do fear the pressure that's being put on them from Sony, or the influence that's being embedded on them from Tencent. But again, I don't think that we're quite there, nor do I think that Tencent is really kind of influencing these decisions so much. I think this is more so Arrowhead themselves wanting to just kind of, squeeze a little bit more out of the players in terms of monetization, so that they could keep putting out great content for us in terms of the warbonds. I know there's always going to be issues, and I know that we need to get those things fixed, but for them right now, they're thinking, hey, it is live service right now, so we have to keep working on the content, and to keep working on the content, it costs us, so we're going to charge you for the content, but there has to be a happy medium, and it has to be, executed in a way that's not kind of pissing off the audience so much with every single update. But in classic fashion, this is not the only issue at hand here that is dividing the audience. No, Arrowhead is also at the height of tensions, released a statement, and of course it was done through Discord, so it's not like a wide public forum that also everyone else that's outside of Discord can see, stating that they are doing a change to how we earn medals through major orders. So, to paraphrase here, you now have to be logged into the game during the point of a major order happening in order to receive the rewards from it. So that means that the days of collecting medals after a hiatus are no longer going to be happening for players that had to take a break from the game, whether it was from life, work, whatever it is. Not everyone always had the time to commit to every single major order and grind content out. So people are a bit mad saying that, well, if I'm not getting these medals, it's going to take me so much more time to grind out the content that's coming out, and I'm going to be behind the curve, and it's going to de-incentivize me from getting back onto the game after a long period of time of waiting. On the other side of the coin, there's people saying, well, you don't deserve to get the medals because you didn't actively participate and you didn't help us complete it. And these two sides are, they're butting heads right now. And I understand the arguments from both sides. But announcing this change during the height of all these tensions is a very weird move from Arrowhead. And the optics aren't so great because people are saying maybe this is a little bit malicious of them. Maybe it was, more innocuous and innocent and they weren't really thinking about it. But again, it has players more mad than they were before about the war bond. This is kind of adding on to it. Well, if these are the issues at hand, what could be some of the solutions? Well, when we take a look first at the medal issue, myself and many others that I'm seeing posting on social media are saying at least increase the medal cap. So no longer setting it to 250, at least bump it up to 500 so that players are able to bank more medals so that maybe, hey, if we aren't getting rewards as consistently from either failing major orders or things like that, or having to be away from a while, we could still bank up a lot more medals than we could previously. So it helps us catch up easier or gets through new content as it drops. Because, the other thing that people are saying is that it's becoming more and more expensive from a medal perspective to buy everything on the third page. I don't know if it's valid or not, but I've seen a couple people observe that, so if you do know that's true, let me know. I'd have to go look at the numbers, but that's another topic for another time, I guess. The other solution is coming from, looking at what we can do to address changes for the exosuit problem in the new warbond. And I think that there's an interesting solution that I saw from one Redditor, and I'm going to read that out for you. So the first suggestion would be to add 2 more new exosuits for free to the audience. So you'd have the 2 paid ones, then the 2 new ones, or add in the highly, highly requested customization feature that would allow modular change in our loadouts to all of our different mechs. So maybe there's 2 standard ones and they can have interchangeable arms. The second one that he's saying would be to replace the exosuit stratagems with a repair weapon stratagem. 3 would be to replace the armor passive to decrease fall damage or crash damage. Keep oxygenated armor passive for a different warbond. So that's an interesting one. 4 would be adding a new booster, which increases vehicle durability. This one would be highly requested so that, these things aren't as much of a paper tiger anymore and they can survive longer. And then 5, happy community equals happy developer. I guess that is a good note and a good takeaway is that if you're consistently making your audience happy, and I know you can't make everyone happy, you know, by and large, the community is going to be, I guess, less toxic than it has been in these past, let's say, 6 months or so. Well, what's your take on the situation? Are you also in the camp of being mad at Arrowhead, or are these changes kind of something that you don't really care about because, hey, you're an SC farmer and you don't really care about the metal change today, so it's not impacting your life? I would love to hear your thoughts. Well, friends, as always, I'll see you on the battlefield, and thanks for taking the time. Take care.